Okay, so we did all that. We did reflected across the y, reflected across the x, and what we noticed was all that happened in this matrix is we had 1, 0, 0, 1, and we changed the sign of one of these. One of them became -1. So using that information, what's going to happen if I multiply it by this? That's right, nothing's going to change. Because what's happening here is, whoops, I'm multiplying this row times this column. So 1 times 2 and 0 times 6 is just 2. This row times this column. 1 times 9 and 0 times 10 is just 9. This row times this column. 0 times 2 is 0 plus 1 times 6 is just 6. So if I multiply by this one right here, nothing changes. We call that an identity matrix, and we'll go into those a little bit more in later on, but for right now, just think of this doesn't change it. If I change the sign of one of these, it's going to reflect it. What happens if I change the sign of both of them? So remember, when I changed the sign of just this row, when I changed this to -1, it changed this whole row to negative. When I changed the sign of this, it changed this whole row to negative. So what's going to happen here is they're both going to change signs. And you can multiply it out if you want, but I already know I'm going to be resulting with this. So what happened? Reflected across the y, reflected across the x? Kind of, but not really. What's happening here is a rotation of 180 degrees. So that triangle that we had that was like this rotated 180 degrees to be like that. So reflected across the y, reflected across the x, kind of. But we just rotated it, is what we really did. 180 degrees. Okay? Next one. So what's different about this matrix than the one that I said was an identity matrix? What's different? The position of the ones. So what's going to happen here when we do this? I want you to pause it for a couple of seconds and think about it. That's right. The x's and the y's are going to switch locations. So when I multiply this row times this column, I get 0 times 2 is 0, 1 times 6 is 6. This row times this column, 0 times 9 is 0, 1 times 10 is 10. This row times this column, 0 times 6 is 0, 1 times 1 is 1. This row times this column, 1 times 2 is 2, 0 times 6 is 0. 1 times 9 is 9, 0 times 10 is 0. 1 times 6 is 6, 0 times 1 is 0. So what happened here? All of the x's became the y's, and all of the y's became the x's. So I want you to think about that. What changed when we did that? What changed, actually, on the graph when we changed the x's to the y's? What changed when we did that?